what we practice in our younger life, in our little life, really becomes our set way until we review it again and change it. And so I think it's really important for us as parents to instill the confidence way, the confidence code with our children, so that they get to practice that at a young age where they are in a supported environment, where their desires are just starting, they're becoming aware of what they love and what feels good for them. So we're guiding them to take note of all of that so that when they become adults, then they're far less likely to have those midlife crises.
Welcome to the Confidence Code. My name is Kimmy and I'm here with Di from DiLive. We're going to be talking today about how to raise confident kids. I love this topic. I love any topic when it comes to making kids just the most awesome version of themselves. So talk to me about confidence. How can we tell if our kid is confident? What are some of the signs of a confident kid?
When we talk about life in us, all of us have it, and the flow of that, which is, to me, a sure sign. In fact, confidence is the result of the flow of that. So if your child is not confident, you'll notice it in their posture, you'll notice it in the way they speak. Are they holding back in any way, or do they look relaxed? Do they hesitate at all? So really observing your child is a good way to see, because confidence is just the pure expression of the life in us without any hesitation. No masks, no holding back, no hesitation. And that whole life flow is such a healthy and whole way to be. If you're noticing your child is that, and I can say from my grandchildren, when I look at them, they are not holding back. Like, they just bolt up to me and say what they want to say, and their movement is one of confidence. I think you can spot it a mile away. When I think about myself as a young girl, I wasn't confident. I was the complete opposite of it, and I held my head down. I liked to grow my hair long and have it in my face. I wore big sloppy clothes. I felt like I was trying to hide. My posture wasn't good. I spoke very quietly, if at all. Found it very hard to speak or express any emotion. I didn't laugh very much at all. And
why do you think it's important that we, I guess, monitor is the right word, or help cultivate confidence in our kids? Why is that an important thing for them?
I think because we want to cultivate it, because our job as parents, I believe, is not to make mini versions of ourselves, but to help our children get to know who they are. And so we do that by just that, helping them to understand, how did you feel about that? I remember, in my ignorance as a parent, really wanting my children to understand that I was proud of them. And I really drilled that into them, I'm proud of you, I'm proud of you. So their performance made me proud. And now I have a very different view of that, and I am very mindful saying to my grandchildren, wow, that's amazing. How did you feel? Did you feel proud of yourself? Helping them to connect with what's going on in their life and how do they feel about it, not directing their focus to be, how did someone else think about that or feel about that?
Yeah, definitely.
More inward focused. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, you did. No, that's, I think it's important to talk about the fact that, we want to cultivate that in them, not just make it about us and, how proud we feel of them. How do you think it benefits them as adults to be confident as a kid?
What we practice in our younger life, in our little life, really becomes our set way until we review it again and change it. And so I think it's really important for us as parents to instill the confidence way, the confidence code with our children, so that they get to practice that at a young age where they are in a supported environment, where their desires are just starting, they're becoming aware of what they love and what feels good for them. So we're guiding them to take note of all of that so that when they become adults, then they're far less likely to have those midlife crises. I remember watching a friend of mine who had lived such a controlled life as a youngster and made his parents proud, done all the things that they expected and just shone, and then, got married, had a family, was in a job, and then just dropped it all and just was, went off and had a midlife crisis. Now, to me, that's like he's been holding it down for so long. It's just time for him to be himself.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think we really do a good thing for our children when we help them in those younger years to relate to how does it feel to be confident, and you want to live that way. Always. Not shaping yourself differently, not showing up differently in order to get someone else's approval. But how do you feel?
We want that to become a practice for them early on, so that not being self-assured and not being confident as an adult isn't a thing. Like, they just have done it their whole lives, being confident, and nurtured that in a safe environment. Because that's the thing as an adult, is it's much harder to cultivate confidence when you don't actually have your core, like we are designed to have, parents that actually help us and support us and are safety nets for us. Which, obviously isn't always the case for everyone. But, if we can do that for our kids, be that safety net, help them develop that confidence when they're kids, as an adult, they are that already, and they're not going to wrestle with so many things that adults do.
And I know we touched on this in our Life Abundant podcast about, we have these core needs in us as human beings, and one is authenticity, so showing up, being ourselves, and the other one is acceptance. And I think that safety net that you talk about with our children, we really want them to know that they are accepted and loved as they are. That will develop confidence in them, and they will just retain that, like when they're little, they just beam. If we can help them retain that, and then they will move into the adult world. I read somewhere many years ago that if you don't receive that as a youngster, you will crave for it for the rest of your life, and nothing will satisfy it. But if we can give them that assurance that, you are you, and that is perfectly fine, then they're set for life. No one will ever take that from them, sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. So as parents, what can we do to actually give them the skills to be confident, or give them the tools that they need to be confident? But also, what can we do within ourselves to help them to be confident?
So much in that question. I think the number one thing, and I've witnessed this in my life, is we can't give what we don't have. So I would say to any parent out there that, I meet lots of mothers, particularly of teenage daughters, and they have all manner of things going on, and the mothers so want the daughters to be confident and to be themselves. However, the mothers need to do that, and I was one such mother. And so when I started to be the best I could be and develop my confidence, I noticed that all of those around me, gave them permission to do the same. I think one of the key things with children is to let them be heard, like really heard. So that takes time as a parent.
Totally.
Dedicated time to actually sit with them and take the time and let them express what they are feeling, so that they can, one, get in touch with what they're feeling, but also know it's okay to feel that. They're not it's not going to change the love they're receiving or the acceptance they're receiving. I think that alone would change a lot of things, helping them.
Which I know, for any parents with young kids out there, that can be, I don't know if you've ever been on the end of a 5-year-old's long-winded story. It's a little bit patience, testing, but I think it is powerful to actually instill in them that your words are important, they have value, you deserve to be heard. What you have to say, even at a young age, is still important. And I think that's really, really good advice.
It's funny, I had 3 daughters, and I used to trot off to bed at 9:30 at night, and by the time I'd gone into each of their bedrooms and said goodnight, it could have been 10:30, 11 o'clock sometimes. Those long stories. But I think the other thing too, as a parent, give our children plenty of opportunity to experience a wide range of experiences.
Yeah.
So that, again, they can observe how they feel and, sort of guide them through that. Yeah, so they're not kept in a little sheltered, and then they launch out into the big wide world and have all these shocks of having not experienced things.
Yeah, definitely. So experiences you feel like is an important part of confidence.
Yeah,
That's a really interesting one. I hadn't considered that, because you're right. When you've had more experiences, you are more confident in just being able to go out into the wide world and,
I mean, think about travel. I was, my children always joked I lived under a rock, and pretty true in a sense, like very sheltered life and didn't have a lot of, bigger experiences. But when you travel, when you think about people that travel, there's a confidence in those people because they've had to deal with things and adapt to things and, think on their feet, be streetwise and all of that. So I think, the more experiences we can have, and then we sort of getting to know ourselves, that's what confidence, that's where it comes from, is knowing yourself so well that someone could tell you something, say something about you, and you think, well, no, I don't believe that because I know me.
Yeah.
And so the more experiences we have, the more we know about ourselves.
Yeah, that's so true. So if we're wanting to teach our kids about confidence and help them to understand it and give them like a skill set to be more confident people, what are the principles that we want to land on? What are the principles we want to hand to them? So, you said experiences, but in the sense of like we give them the experiences when they're younger, we, open up their lives to experiences. But for them, say you've got a kid who is, every kid that goes to school has experienced the complete lack of confidence that you can have when you're at school sometimes. You get people pointing out all the worst things about you. You get maybe teachers who talk to you in a way that, makes you believe you're not very clever. How would we equip and give skills and principles to our kids to handle confidence in those younger years? Like what would you tell a kid to do if they were having trouble with their confidence in an environment like school?
I think initially when you were just saying there that we give them their experiences, I remember with my girls, they had a lot of desires about what they wanted to do in their, extracurricular activities. And we had quite a list by the end of the day, and pets that we owned. And, and so I think a part of it is, again, having them be heard and actually not just heard, but acknowledged and acted on.
Yes.
And so, yes, there were a lot of things the girls tried because they had a desire to do it. And then they went and experienced it and often didn't continue. So I think the first thing, and it's the same for adults, to be honest, you teach children the same as adults when it comes to most things. Children pick it up quicker, generally. So help them understand what they like and what they don't like the desires of their heart and what that feels like. I think a lot of us have grown up to be told what we like, like again, you might have your child come and say, I want to be a ballet dancer. Oh, well, you don't want to do that, and you talk them out of it. So they start to not listen to what is the desire of their heart. And I think it's important for us to help them hear, oh, this is an interest of mine. Follow that path. So that they do get to know who they are.
That's so interesting.
The seed of confidence is that real knowing who we are, so that, like you said, if they're at school and someone's giving them a hard time, they can observe. So that would be the other thing I would equip children with, is the power of observation without taking it on. So if someone's being nasty to me, I'm observing that. I observe how it makes me feel. It doesn't feel good, so it's not for me. It's a bit like if I give you a hot rock, how does that feel? I don't like it, I want to put it down. Good, so put it down. Or just let that go past. That's a skill that if someone's handing me anything, verbally, physically, and it doesn't make me feel good, then it's not for me. That person doesn't get to tell me what's for me. I do. My feeling will tell me.
That's so interesting.
So I think that's a good skill for the children to be aware of, and adults too.
So helping them to get in touch with their desires and actually honouring those desires as well, and teaching them to observe things from almost like a non-judgmental point of view. Like, I don't have to take this on if I don't want to. I think I would add to that also observing where they think this, the person who's handing it to them, where's that person coming from right now?
Yeah, that can lead us to judgment. I think there is a fine line between observing and judgment.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. Observe, yes, that person.
Yeah.
Do they look like they're happy with themselves?
Yes.
Are they feeling good? It's a bit like when someone, vomits. You don't see a person in a really good feeling way and then they vomit. They generally are not feeling good, and then you see the outpouring of that.
Yes.
It's the same with anyone. They're handing us something that's not so nice.
Yeah.
They're
it's
probably
usually
not in a great state to
that's
start
right.
with.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. The other thing is for the person, for the child, thinking about how they observe how they treat other people and the way they see other people, because you very rarely see someone that is fully confident giving out bad things or being judgmental or being awful to other people. They feel good and they move around well, and they they're generally very loving people because they feel good in themselves. So for our children to observe, how did that make you feel? I know one of you girls used to laugh about that, like, how does that make you feel?
How do you feel?
Yeah, and I think that's important for us to know, how does that make me feel? Because that's indicative of whether, is that something that's really me?
Yeah.
If it's me, it'll feel good.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that is very true. I think that's actually such a powerful thing when we're approaching this kind of thing with our kids, especially when it comes to social situations, is that people can say what they want about you, but it doesn't mean, if it's something that doesn't resonate with you and go, yeah, that's what I want to be, or that's what that's a truth that I know is, deeply right. We don't have to take it, we don't have to take their opinion and do anything with that.
No, we do not.
And I think that can be a tricky thing to put into, to accept in our brain a little bit.
Yeah.
But if we can teach our kids that young, that is such an important thing.
Yeah. I think it's hard for us to put in our brain because we were not brought up that way. We were taught to listen to me and do as I say.
Yeah.
And a lot of that was, I know for me, short-circuited, as in that was my focus. Do and say and be what others want you to do and say and be.
Yeah.
Never was I asked, how do you feel and what do you want?
Yeah. I think it is part of our acceptance makeup though as well. Like you were saying, we've got those two core needs as human beings, and it's authenticity and acceptance or belonging. Mm-hmm. And I think even with, my younger child, I definitely recognize that she, will consider, oh, that person said that thing about me. Should I believe that? It's still, I think that acceptance, wiring that we have still causes us to consider what that person is saying as to be, well, maybe I should take that on board.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we have to use. So maybe even teaching them discernment between.
Absolutely.
That's the other thing. And I am a strong advocate for growth within yourself. And so there's going to be times where I'm going to want to hear what someone says and go, actually, do you know what? That's something I need to work on.
Yes.
And I think teaching them that discernment as well is really important, because otherwise we do go through life being like, I am the perfect person.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we don't want that narcissism complex.
No.
But
and I
what
think
would you say to that?
Yeah, I think you're right in that if someone says something, and it's even right when you see something, and all of us have done this as adults, you see something and our reaction is indicative, of course, but you might see someone, like I was not a confident young lady, and I used to see people that, dressed well and had nice hair, and I'd sort of look and think, oh, I wanted that. I didn't believe it was good to want back then. I thought I should just be happy with who I was and how I was. But I did notice how it made me feel, like I really want that. And sometimes we can look at something and you might have a jealous feeling, and this is obvious in children a lot of the time.
Yeah.
You'll see them see someone. I took my granddaughter once to see a show at the Festival Theatre, and there were lots of other young girls there dressed up as the main character with their fancy dress on and, fluttering around. And she noticed them. I thought she noticed them, but she was so happy to just be there. She was in her jeans and jumper and her sand shoes, and she was happy to be there. Noticing these other girls, I could see she sort of was aware that, they look pretty and all of that. During the show, I said to her, because we had a break at interval and a couple of these girls were playing, and then one of them walked over to my granddaughter and said, you can't play because you're not dressed like us. And broke my heart. I was standing just off to the side, and to see how that affected her. But what was beautiful was that she sort of moved away, and I could see she was a bit unsure of herself for a while, obviously weighing that up.
Processing, yeah.
And when we got back in, I remember saying to her, she was a little bit subdued, and I said, you know what, I'm noticing all these girls with these dresses and their hairs are done, and, you know, their mothers look like they've been up since whatever to get them ready. But the thing that I had noticed, and I made this clear to my granddaughter, was none of them are really smiling like you. I said, you know, the thing I've noticed about you today is your face is lit up like those lights on the stage. I said, you look so happy, and it's so beautiful to see, and it's so lovely to be around. These other girls have these lovely dresses, but they don't look like they're feeling very happy. And I noticed her then noticing it, you know. And so I think it's really important for, confidence comes from us feeling good. And noticing what doesn't make us feel good, which means it's not for me. Or if it makes me feel good, or it raises something in me that says, I would like more of that. Like you said, I'd like to, that's indicating the growth. And it says it's in me already.
Definitely.
You know, it's looking to be expressed. So
I know in our latest course that we've just released recently, Beautiful You, you talk a lot about recognizing and acknowledging your desires, and you talk a lot about like what you do like and what you don't like, and really being aware of that. I'm going to take that. That's me, or no, that's not me. And learning how to kind of discern between what is you and what's not, and how to not reject, but, you know, like how to just be like, no, I'm fine with not taking that on. Thank you. And I love that element of this Beautiful You course for just getting to know and reconnecting with yourself. Like, I think that's the biggest thing about why Beautiful You was created. So we've just created this online course, and it's self-paced. It's 11 modules. You get a workbook, you get monthly Q&As for 6 months with Di. But this course, which we've titled Beautiful You, is really about reconnecting with yourself, understanding your desires. Like, what do you want out of your life? What do you want your life to look like? And then how do you get to the point where you're actually living that? How are you recognizing what to say yes and no to? How are you getting to the place where you're actually happy within yourself and you feel like you're living that authentic self?
I think in that it's also important for us to note and to teach our children that just because something isn't for you, and there's a funny analogy I'll tell you in a minute, if it's not for me, it doesn't mean it's not good. It just means it's not for me.
Exactly.
It's like if you're, you know, the life our children want to live, you know, we can encourage them to say, well, who are you? What appeals to you? If I'm making a cake and I go to the supermarket to get the ingredients for that cake, and I come across a tin of tuna, that's not going to go in the cake. But it doesn't mean I have to clear the shelves of tuna and, you know, start a protest against tuna. Like, there's nothing wrong with tuna. It's just not for me at this time.
I think like thinking about our seasons as well is really important too. Like, just because it's not for you right now doesn't mean it might not be for you in the future. And, you know, just learning to say yes and no to the things that are for you for the season that you're in as well is super important. And teaching our kids to have that discernment, and then that allows them to step into their life so much more confidently. Because if you think about all the decisions a kid has to make from, you know, the time that they finish high school to, you know, being a young adult, there's so many decisions they have to make. And even within school, you know, what subjects are you going to choose? What social group are you going to choose? Having the confidence to be able to choose those things, make those decisions in a way that's actually going to be good for them, and do well for their lives, and well for their social life, and well for their career. Giving them the confidence or the skills to be confident to actually make those decisions based on what their inner self is saying is actually so important.
I think a big part about confidence too is disconnecting or not being too attached to the outcome. Because again, if one of our children wants to go in a certain direction and they feel they want to, you know, not mapping that out to the nth degree and saying, right, well, this is where you're going to end up, but okay, right here, right now. And so again, observation is a really good skill to teach our children and for us to practice. I observe how I feel, and I'm going to start down this path. Now, that desire in you and the life in you that's looking to be expressed is guiding you there because you from that point, you're going to see your next step. Now, that might mean a right-hand turn, but there was something between here and here that was essential for you to experience in order to then get the next step. So I think not micromanaging our children and letting them feel what that feels like.
Yes, and like teaching them to actually sit in the unsure, and know that that's actually still it can still be a safe place.
And it's a part of their learning. A bit like my mum, bless her, she's gone now, but her dressing style was very different to mine, and she dictated what I wore till I was quite old, as in quite well into my teenage years, and I left home without having experimented very much with what I wore, and it took me some years to start to really get a handle on what was me and what wasn't.
Yeah, definitely. So just letting them have that autonomy and letting them sit in the sometimes slightly uncomfortable as they make certain decisions and see where it lands them, and
no judgment. You know, when you might think, oh, I don't think that's going to end well, to just go, look, to help them feel it out. And then
that begins when your children start dressing themselves.
Yes, odd socks.
Are you really going to wear that out of the house? Are you sure?
It's so
such
good.
Valuable insight.
Isn't that a good example though? Because how often did I walk out of the house with the girls dressed as I wanted them to be seen? And they may have felt so uncomfortable in that. Whereas if our children can go out and just be loud and proud, that's
it really is their first step to learning how to be confident and just authentically themselves. That's such valuable information. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Thank you for joining us on this episode of The Confidence Code and talking about raising confident kids. If you have any questions, I'm going to leave a link below for you to book a call with Di, and you can chat to her more about your parenting journey and how you can really shape and form your kids in ways that they can be confident and authentic in themselves. I'm also going to leave the link down in the description to the Beautiful You course, which is our most recent released course. It's such a valuable tool that you can actually take yourself and then impart that wisdom on your kids as well, because there is some amazing insight in that course that will help you not just become a more confident version of yourself, but it will also help you to have the skills and the tools to pass down to your kids and help them to be the most confident version of themselves as well. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.